Hi, I'm Katie Bullon and it's ADHD Awareness Month this month, and I think it's important to talk about my journey and my thoughts on this topic, which is so important.
Amazing.
I didn't know what ADHD was, if I'm honest, until probably a couple of years ago. There's been loads more in the media about it, and I think for me, I always felt kind of different in my life, and maybe either too much or not enough or unable to deal with certain things. And when I started exploring about ADHD, that's when things started to make sense.
Amazing.
So when I started considering diagnosis and looking into things, it was really difficult to know where to start in terms of getting the information. Because a lot of it was on social media. So you think, well, is this a trusted source of resource? So for me, I did approach the GP, and that wasn't really a very successful route, which I understand that there's a lot of resources needed to deal with all of these people that are having these realizations about things. So in the end, I went down the private route, which meant I could get diagnosed really quickly. I think the education piece on ADHD, because of all of the varied information that's out there from NHS sources, very passionate sources on social media, on the news, etc. It was, for me, trying to understand where I sat in all of that, but also your close-knit circle, your family, trying to kind of demonstrate to them your thoughts on it when actually they don't understand it, and maybe they have seen an upsurge in people thinking they've got ADHD and huge waiting lists and diagnosis, and it being a bit of a buzzword at the time. So I think that was a struggle for me, because it was almost proving to them that I had to get a diagnosis rather than just understanding that myself. So it was difficult to be kind of in the middle when it was me going through it, I suppose. I would honestly say, since I've been diagnosed with ADHD, it has changed everything in my life. I was diagnosed when I was 39. I'm 41 now, and I feel like the most content version of myself I've ever been in my adult life, which is brilliant. It makes me realise that there was things that have happened in my teens, 20s, 30s that maybe could have been different if I'd have understood that this is how my brain is wired. So it's been brilliant for me.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the opposite from my experience. I think that a lot of people who are running businesses, who are entrepreneurs, who are go-getters, and people that are happy to do things differently, they are wired in a certain way that allows them to have that kind of personality type, and that comes with ADHD often, not always of course, but I think in the business communities that we're part of, there's a real positive slant on ADHD and all of those people I just mentioned. So I definitely don't feel there's a stigma, and for me, I don't feel ashamed in any way to have ADHD. But that being said, it doesn't come without struggles, which it's really important for people to understand that it's not all just big ideas and energy and everything that you see on the surface potentially, that there is another side to it, but that's the same for any type of person. There's a positive side to things, and there's, the things that you have to work on and deal with as a result of things sometimes.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's always been the ability to see things a bit differently, to see a problem and not just think that that's not an option, to be able to be creative and think about different ways around it, also have the energy and motivation to actually do these things and think outside the box. I think there's a huge amount of positives for someone leading a business with ADHD. But that being said, it's about having a team around you who have got a different personality type and a different approach to work generally. And that's with all of these different models that we use within business to profile different personality types and different people within a team. You know, that's all part of that. And it's about having complementary roles that are, you know, within my team for people who are really good and interested and passionate about the things that maybe don't come as naturally to me. So I think there's positives to be a leader, CEO, creative entrepreneur with ADHD, but you've also got to really make sure that you understand your limitations, the things you struggle with, and you've got to make sure that you structure a business and a team so that you've got that rounded approach. Yeah. So I think some of the things that I do to manage my ADHD, I developed them and put them in place before I knew I had ADHD. And it kind of makes sense that that's why I operate the way I do. So I have to write everything down. Everything is in my diary. You know, there's a way that I operate my life, which is very busy, having 3 children and running a business and all of the other responsibilities. So I've had to just be that way. So I think within the business, you know, we use project management systems, we have processes in place, and I think that's really useful for everybody as well as being useful for me. I think every business should have that structure anyway. But, you know, and things like having more flexible office hours with core hours, I think for certain people that have to have that flexibility, that is really helpful. And I think it supports a positive culture of everyone being able to do what they need to do in life, whilst obviously doing what they need to do in work. Okay, so I think the thing for me that I've struggled with more about the misconceptions is outside of work. I think people in your life that you care about that aren't part of this work world, it's hard for them to understand exactly what this means for you, for your children, for life in general. And I think, you know, that really highlights how education, awareness, you know, talking positively about conditions which can have nasty sides, like I said, I think it goes to show how that education that we receive within a work environment isn't necessarily as prevalent outside of that, and where there are a lot more misconceptions rather than the other way around, if you know what I mean. Personally feel like understanding you, understanding how your brain works would change your life. I know, and I've come across lots of different people who don't understand why a label is important if maybe you weren't going to go down the route of medication, for example. But for me, I think understanding you, how you operate, the things you might struggle with, it changes everything for the better in my experience. And I would say that if you do suspect that and you have struggles, then seek an answer for yourself. So important. I mean, you know, my experience is more with ADHD when it comes to neurodiversity, but there's lots of forms, different parts to it. And I think that awareness of anyone running a team, running a business, it's just got to be there from an education perspective, because, you know, having a culture where people are supported and happy in the workplace, for me, is what makes a team work. You can have all of the structure and the business in place and, you know, expectations of everyone, but if you don't genuinely meet their needs as an individual and as a human being, then you're not going to get the best out of them, and you're not going to retain staff long term because they're not in an environment which makes them flourish. So for me, it's about making sure everyone is genuinely, and not just by way of a policy, supported and able to flourish in what they're doing.
Yeah.
I would say if you feel like ADHD is holding you back and you don't yet have a formal diagnosis, I would say explore that. I can very much relate to the feeling of having so many ideas and wanting to do so many different things and knowing that you've got this inside you to do, but actually not quite having the ability to put it all into place. And as a result, feeling really frustrated and like you're not doing a good enough job or you're not achieving. So I think understanding whether that's through just learning more on tools and tactics that you can put in place to support your life in work and without can really make a huge difference to your overall contentment in life ultimately.
And happy ADHD Awareness Month.
Thank you.